With the additional points from the second edition of the book, something called performing the principle. So there is a broad consensus that lack of local ownership is a fundamental reason for the generally poor results of many capacity development initiatives over years. If people from outside come in, install something, or have the local partners install something that is not locally owned, then sustaining the capacity itself may become an issue. So capacity development is instead often designed and driven by external partners and donor priorities. If there are donors that are funding it, their own biases may creep in explicitly or implicitly. Whilst virtually all capacity development initiatives are explicitly described as partnerships, many, if not most, of them struggle with the essential mutuality and equality between internal and external partners. We discussed this in some detail already, but I'm repeating a few of the points. And these the struggle can be due to differences in organizational cultures of the partners, tight time frames involved, lack of ability to cooperate, and power imbalances, because donors may often come in with more implicit power, which can be domination, authority, or legitimacy, and so on. Moreover, there is generally a lack of consensus on what ownership, partnership, and other key concepts mean, resulting in misunderstandings between the partners. Such Babylonian confusion is detrimental to itself to partnerships for capacity development. And again, remember, Babylonian confusion here is the allusion to the biblical idea of the Tower of Babylon, where workers were to work together, but they would speak a different language every hour. So that was just a mess. So Babylonian confusion is about differences in languages of the external and internal partners. Tailoring the capacity development initiatives to the actual needs and context is generally not happening to any sufficient extent in practice, as we'll see in a minute. Instead, external partners often have a fix-it or no better approach to capacity development, and regularly come up with blueprint solutions that fit their own and other donors' agendas. And if you do rural development and so on, you realize that everything is so location specific, culture specific, that you have no blueprints. You have to go, sit down, establish a rapport, understand the context, and then develop the capacity. Thus, regularly ignoring established strategies, institutions, and procedures, and creating parallel structures, potentially obstructing the space for novelty and local experimentation, and undermining existing capacity and local ownership. So indigenous knowledge and experiential knowledge may be lost or overridden by external partners who are not fully aware of what they are talking about. So blueprint idea is one size fits all, but this is not at all true when you think about capacity development in human environment systems, which are very location specific. So the new edition adds this 7 types of failure here. We'll briefly run through them. Analyzing the discrepancy between principles and performance suggests a typology of 7 common types of failures in capacity development that ultimately determine any potential effects, positive or negative. Whilst these failures are depicted as steps downward towards complete failure, it's important to note that they can occur in various combinations with varying results that may not be complete failure, but may be essentially a dysfunctional situation in terms of capacity. So here is a typology of 7 common failures. Potential effect of capacity development should go up this way, and you have the ideal effect where you have accomplished the main goal. So no capacity assessment can be won. We'll read a bit about this. External partner develops the project plan, which can leave you with no local ownership. No time to implement, so time limitations. Only ad hoc training, so that local ownership is not complete. Pilot without scale up, so the initial implementation is not done with any long-term strategy for scaling up the capacity, and no focus on utilization, so effectiveness and efficacy are lost there, efficiency. No focus on retention, so long-term sustainability is not accounted for. Type 1 failure, no capacity assessment. Capacity assessment is essential for external partners to understand the local context and existing capacities and to start building relations with potential partners and other actors, and internal partners must be central to and facilitate the process of actual implementation, which we already talked about. Such mutual commitment from the beginning has also been suggested as important to facilitate trust between prospective partners. However, properly understanding the local context and pre-existing capacities is challenging without sufficient time and resources, which are both generally scarce when needed due to short-term funding that is almost exclusively only available until after the capacity development initiative has been designed and approved. That's the way projects work when you are trying to do capacity development. We talked about how external partners' notions can begin to contradict or ignore local partners' notions of what is capacity and what it's supposed to accomplish. Okay, so moreover, external partners are also liable to the expert blind spot, an excessive focus on one's own expertise and perspectives that biases them only to see what they are interested in and focus on their own priorities and areas of expertise while overlooking other issues and available capacities. Okay, so secondly, failure of the external partners design initiative. Even with an adequate capacity assessment, external partners generally have their funding opportunities, areas of expertise, goals, conditions, and blueprint solutions, which is what we meant by this, that may not fit. So having specific funding that demands results within a particular area and within a short time frame generates a deep need for control, erodes flexibility, and points accountability towards the donors instead of the internal partners and the people benefiting from the initiative. Capacity development initiatives are thus often procedurally designed and managed by external partners, undermining the influence of internal partners who end up in being dependent on the external partners forever. Local ownership never completely happens. Furthermore, internal partners seeking increased independence and self-efficacy are then often hindered by their external partners' static models and blueprint solutions of what they believe is needed and may not match their internal needs. The third type of failure is on insufficient time to implement, which is fairly straightforward. So even with an adequate capacity assessment and well-designed plan of activities, there is often insufficient time to implement actual capacity development activities. Ironically enough, there appears to exist an assessment dilemma with either too much focus and time spent on assessment in relation to the actual implementation of activities or no assessment done at all. Okay, so you get the idea of how time constraints can happen. Failure of only because of only ad hoc training. So many capacity development projects focus on overwhelmingly ad hoc trainings, short-term technical training activities such as 1 or 2 day or maybe up to 1 week training workshops. So they come in with modules, they put people together and provide all kinds of tools, but irrespective of having a limited impact at best, they are designed on a limited time and there is no test of whether the capacity has been acquired by the internal partners. Capacity development is often even thought of as such training by default. Although the trained individuals may of course learn something useful and important, ad hoc training workshops rarely make any sustainable contributions to the capacity of the human environment system, since individuals move between roles, leave, or might be the wrong person to be trained in the first place. So there are staff turnover problems and so on that are quite intrinsic to these internal-external partner combinations, and external partners are on a time-bound commitment. So here is an example of a pilot without a scale-up, so we'll read what we mean by that. Another typical failure of capacity development initiative is a common fixation on pilot projects that are often never scaled up. Whilst capacity development initiatives are frequently designed to start in a couple of selected communities or districts, but with the explicit rhetoric and grand plans for later expansion to many others as shown here. So an illustration of the cover of a pilot project in 4 communities, which of course then is supposedly to expand to 4,000 communities in Tanzania. So 4 pilot implementations with plans to expand to 4,000 communities. So these often tend to be causes of failure. So this challenge of scaling up is long established in internal development cooperation. They still remain one of the typologies of failures. Excuse me. It's very humid, so I'm feeling dehydrated. Type 6 failure is on having no focus on utilization. Virtually all capacity development initiatives excuse me. Virtually all capacity development initiatives focus overwhelmingly, if not only, on creating capacity, for example, on developing individual skills, establishing procedures, policies and regulations, with no or marginal focus only on supporting internal partners in utilizing the developed ability. How to sustain the developed ability is not well planned in terms of utilization and continued utilization. This lack of capacity utilization seriously undermines capacity development, since it separates whatever is taught and promoted from essential process of learning by doing, and creates a barrier to the type of adaptive learning that actually could facilitate real change. It means that it is not evident whether or not individuals being trained and the organizations getting new policies or procedures actually can utilize them, which is the obvious purpose of the capacity development in the first place. So internal partners can be constantly being capacitated without time and resources to reflect on and apply the skills or integrate the new processes and procedures within the organization if there is no focus on utilization. Finally, no focus on retention. Furthermore, the almost exclusive focus on capacity creation also results in most capacity development initiatives neglecting the capacity retention necessary for any results to be sustainable. This is not just staff turnover and lack of utilization. This is just special attention to retention of the capacity that has been developed. For instance, staff turnover is a massive challenge in this regard, as it continuously undermines the vital institutional memory. Capacity creation can even undermine capacity retention when increasing knowledge and skills of internal partners. Key staff increase their chances of changing positions or getting international jobs, which is further exacerbated by a general lack of job security for many of them, as they are not guaranteed permanent positions when external funding ends. So external partner comes in, produces nice training and tools and capacity, but few people that are chosen to undergo the training see that there are very nice high-paid job opportunities outside, because the internal system hasn't set up a contingency plan to hire all these people who are trained to continue to stay and retain the capacity that was built. So this can be a big issue. So capacity retention is generally overlooked concerning other essential aspects of capacity development, such as the vital capacity to regularly adapt policies, procedures, regulations and processes, which is often ignored after they have first been developed. Okay, so we'll come back and look at principles versus principles and what we mean by that. And again, reminding ourselves, this is the additional points that I'm adding from the second edition of the book to the chapter on capacity development. Okay, so we'll come back and finish adding the additional points that have been made in the second edition. Okay, see you in the next podcast.